Nice threads, man.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Who died?
What?
You're all dressed up.
Nobody died.
So what, like a wedding or something?
No.
Bar mitzvah?
No.
I give up. What's the special occasion?
Oh, this is my new image.
Oh, Steve, you know, if you're gonna have a new image, it's a good idea if you had an old one.
Are you implying that I don't have an image?
Well, you know, if the hush puppy's fit.
Look, the cafe's doing really well. The caliber clientele is on the upswing. I thought maybe, you know, a new look. Besides, I'm told I look hot.
Yeah, well, hot is exactly what you're gonna be in that jacket, Steve. It's kind of impractical.
Impractical for what?
For physical labor.
Physical labor?
Yeah.
What's your point? Listen, Dee, I'm prepared to suffer for style.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm willing to bet that there's no way you could keep that jacket on for the rest of the night.
Willing to bet?
Yeah.
How
All
so?
right. Here's the deal.
Okay.
I'll bet you a free night of coffee
Huh?
if you don't take that jacket off for the rest of the night.
Free night of coffee, eh?
Yeah.
And this is highly unlikely, what if I lose?
If you lose, you clean up and close for me every night this week.
Ooh, every night? Mm-hmm. For a week. Okay, you're on. It's a deal.
Excellent.
No sweat.
Well, we'll see about that. And remember, Steve, you have to keep the jacket on the entire time.
No problemo.
I think I'll go turn the heat up a notch.
When we come back, we're going to begin a detailed look at Netscape Navigator. And a little later, we're going to take a look at some antivirus software. We'll be right back. Is it getting warm in here, or is it my imagination? How about you guys? You notice a little on the warm side?
If you or your children are exchanging disks, be sure to have your virus protection software enabled. If you do get a virus, let the other people who might be infected know. They'll thank you, eventually.
This is too stuffy for me. You don't think she'll notice, do you? She never comes in here. You know, in the past couple of years, we've seen rise to an entirely new form of software. It's called a browser. Browsers are software applications that run on our desktop computers and allow us to point and click our way through the internet, or more accurately, the World Wide Web. The best known of these is Netscape. You might also use Microsoft's Internet Explorer or others. CompuServe in America Online and the other large services also provide custom-made browsers that search the internet through their own gateways. Now, a lot of people confuse the internet with the World Wide Web. The internet was originally designed by the American military during the Cold War to protect valuable information in the event of a nuclear or natural disaster. The idea was sort of based on not keeping all your eggs in one basket. Information would be spread out throughout the U.S. and later the world, so that if one or several sites were destroyed, the information would be available elsewhere. The computers were all linked together, so that if any of them were destroyed, there was still an infinite number of ways for them to communicate with each other. In short, a form of communication that was virtually impossible to disrupt. The result of that work was a standard of connecting all different sorts of computers together, which is called TCP/IP. It was over this backbone that the internet was built. The tools we use to access the information on the internet, even as recently as a few years ago, were programs called Gopher and Veronica and Archie. Each of these specialized to perform a specific task, such as search for a document, or upload or download a document to or from a server, or maybe read news postings. These weren't very user-friendly, and you had to type in lots of codes and stuff like that to get them to work. They definitely weren't for everyone. To be perfectly honest about it, the internet at that time, when these programs ruled the roost, was a pretty propeller-headish environment. Then, a group of real super propeller heads in Switzerland took a break from trying to design a better digital cuckoo clock and came up with a new standard called HTML. They came up with this idea so they could use the internet to publish their papers, amongst other things, and they wanted it to be fast and easy to use. Now, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. I don't think the creators of this standard ever foresaw the results of their creation. HTML started a revolution on the internet. Now we didn't need Veronica or Archie or Gopher to move us through the internet. We could navigate our own way through the internet with a point-and-click interface, like we were used to in Windows or Mac environment. The only catch was the site on the internet had to adopt the HTML standard. The sites that use the HTML standard now are called the World Wide Web, or WWW, or just the web. The software we use to access the web is called a browser. Now, there are many browsers on the market, but at this point in time, there's only one king of the hill. It's called Netscape. I mention it this time because when we did our first TV shows a few years ago, Netscape didn't even exist. That's how fast things are changing on the net. Now, over the next 2 shows, we're going to have a detailed look at configuring and using Netscape. Undoubtedly, one of the most confusing things about using Netscape is how the licensing and numbering of the different software versions works. Netscape gives away their beta versions for you to use for a limited time. Now, beta software is software that's not yet finished. The original idea of beta software was to have a controlled group of individuals use the software in a variety of configurations and conditions, who would then report back the problems or bugs to the programmers, who would then fix the problems before the software was released to the public. Somewhere this concept has been lost. Beta software in the Netscape world equates to free, but buggy in our world. Most people I know upgrade the latest version of Netscape, live with the problems, and never buy the software. Although we do hear plenty of complaining about the problems they suffer through with the software, and they've never even paid a nickel for it. Strange stuff. You can purchase finished software from the Netscape from their home site, and all the licensing information is available there as well. When we first open any version of Netscape, that's where we go, to Netscape's home page. A home page is a starting point to content on the internet. We begin on a home page and then jump from link to link as we work our way through cyberspace. That's why we call this the web. We can get anywhere in the digital world through these links. The Netscape homepage offers us a lot of resources to the internet. It's worth spending some time exploring. Let's start our look at Netscape by looking at the tools here in the toolbar at the top of the screen. The first one I'd like you to have a look at is the handbook. When you download Netscape, you don't get a manual, but through the handbook you can have access to an online manual. The other buttons in the toolbar move us forwards and backwards through the pages we've gone to during this session. Now, configuring Netscape properly for your own personal use is an important next step. Under the Preferences menu, in Options, I always reduce the size of my toolbar here under this command. Show toolbars as text. Watch what happens. Do you notice the difference? I appreciate the extra screen space that I've created for myself. A lot of people think that Netscape always opens to Netscape's home page, and there's no other options. Well, in fact, Netscape can open to any page on the internet. You just have to define that page here. Now, I'm going to put in our home page. Now, when I open Netscape, it'll automatically go to our home page. So you can choose your own starting point. If you want, you can use ours. We'd be flattered. Continuing on with our setup, we can select our fonts. I want to take a moment here to explain a little bit about how HTML works. HTML is designed to work in multiple operating systems. As a result, it doesn't specify things like font selection, because you might not have the font that the page author does. Instead, HTML lets the readers choose the font he or she likes to look at on their screens. So select your favorite font here. One piece of advice, though. Pick one that's not too small and not too large. If you pick one that's too small, you won't be able to read it. It'll just be too tiny. And if you pick one too large, it'll take up too much screen space. The next choice here is that I want to look at is the helper applications. The helpers enable your browser to do things like play sounds, view pictures, and play movies. We'll cover helpers in greater detail in our next show. Setting up our mail options is next. One nice feature to look at here is to mail a copy of all your messages to yourself. Most of us like to keep a record of our emails. Now, Netscape allows us to send and receive messages, but it doesn't store our outgoing messages in our normal mail package. So that if we send a copy of our message to ourselves, then when we use our regular email software, we can file the messages we sent while in Netscape. We can also configure our mail and news servers here. Netscape is adding functionality by allowing us to send email directly from within the browser and view our news groups as well. But we need to enter the address of the mail and news servers to accomplish this. If you don't know the name of these servers, contact your internet service provider's technical support desk to help you out. Now we can set up our caching preferences. And no, this isn't just because this is like a cache business here at the cafe. This is a different type of cache. The cache here allows us, it's really worth spending a few minutes discussing because it'll speed up the speed with which Netscape works. What happens is every time that Netscape downloads a site or a page to your own computer is it saves the image file. It saves some detail about that file on your server. And that's where it saves it in the cache. And you can set a limit to how big that is. I've got it set here for 5 megabytes. So 5 megabytes worth of pages can be stored here in the cache. So next time I go back to that site, Netscape doesn't have to go out, the internet doesn't have to provide all of the new data again. It just has to reestablish the link, find out what changes there are to that site, transmit that information, and what it does basically is it really speeds up the amount of time that you spend waiting, or really reduces the amount of time that you spend waiting online while you're browsing the internet. So when you do that, set your cache size as large as you can. If you have a large hard drive, set it to 5 or 10 or even 15 megabytes, and then Netscape will perform much faster. Security is a growing issue on the net as well, and Netscape manages all its security tools in this area here. Once we have set up all these preferences, we can begin to have some fun surfing the net. Now, as I mentioned before, most people will get their first taste of the web from Netscape's own homepage. It's a good idea to check out the What's New and What's Cool selections. They give you a feel for navigating the web. In the What's New site, any new sites that have been submitted to Netscape that they think are interesting are posted. As we browse the internet, any of the blue type, that links us to the page. So if I want to go to the fuzzy logic group, if Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear, I can go to the fuzzy logic group just by clicking there, and that link takes me directly to it. One tool that you'll want to use before, as I mentioned a lot, is the forward and back tools in the toolbar. As we can see, the Fuzzy Wuzzy site is a fairly substantial site, so I'll just move back and take a look at What's Cool for a moment. The What's Cool site's a very popular place where people, all of the different cool and kind of more unusual sites are posted. When you find a site that's really interesting and you might want to return to it another time, you can remember the location by bookmarking it. You choose Add Bookmark under the bookmark menu here, and Netscape will index the site for you so that in the future you can return. Now, over time, you're going to gather quite a collection of bookmarks. We can organize them here under the bookmarks. We see here that I've got several folders with bookmarks existing, and some new bookmarks that I've just added here myself. What I can do is I can create a new folder for these, and I can sort them logically. You're going to want to sort bookmarks into different topics that you want. So maybe you've got some hobbies. That creates a folder, and you see the folder right here. Now these, the Tennessee Aquarium, I like aquariums and fish, so I'll put that in my hobby folder as the 1-2 tweet aviary, because in our family birds are a big hobby. And also the, you know, I'm kind of a big hockey fan, and that's kind of a hobby of mine, so I'm going to put the hockey site in there. And what I've got now is I've got a folder with my different hobbies in it. When I close this down and go under my bookmark menu now to navigate the internet, I have a new pop-up list called Hobbies. And if I want to go to any of these sites, I just select them from the bookmark there, and it moves me directly to them. This is a really user-friendly and quick way of remembering the valuable information you find on the internet and moving back to it. Now, one thing people spend a lot of time doing on the internet is searching for information. There are lots of resources to help you search, and the most common are called search engines. These are internet servers which index and search the content found on the internet. Now, you'll develop your own favorite search sites and techniques, but let me show you the basics. There's a button here called Net Search. When we go to that, it brings us up the most popular internet searching sites. We see that I use OpenText and Lycos and all of these ones here. They're all available to you. I like OpenText. I think it was originally a Canadian product. We go to that right off the top. And now if you want to search for something that you're interested in, a topic that you're interested in, you just type in the words of that search here. And so for our, let's put in, since we are a cafe, let's put in coffee. And then click Search. So the OpenText server is now searching for all the different coffee-related sites, and they've come back with, unbelievably, 14,901 sites containing coffee. That's enough coffee to even keep me happy, don't you think? And there's all different sorts of sites here related to coffee. If you want, what you'll typically do is you'll start searching for something, a really broad description like coffee. And you'll hit so many sites like this that you'll then start to narrow the search by adding other words to control. So you might add decaffeinated coffee and it'll just bring up those wimpy decaf coffee sites. Or espresso coffee and you'll find some much more robust sites. Believe it or not, we've only scratched the surface of what Netscape and the internet can offer us. Next week we're going to continue to look at the tools Netscape offers by looking at helper applications, the mail and news features, and look at what the future holds for us through tools like Java and Shockwave. Stick around. We'll be right back. One thing we get a lot of questions about is viruses. Speaking of which...
Hey, you weren't just putting that coat back on now, were you?
No. I was just adjusting it. That's it, adjusting it.
You haven't forgotten about our little bet now, have you, Steve?
Our bet? Oh, you mean
Yeah.
for the free coffee?
Uh-huh.
Oh, no, I can just about taste it now.
All right, then. Just remember, I'm keeping my eye on you, Steve. I'll check that thermostat again.
As I was saying, one thing we get a lot of questions about is viruses, or to be grammatically correct, vira. A computer virus is like a biological virus. They do varying levels of harm and damage, and nobody wants to be exposed to one. Now, people used to be worried about getting viruses from borrowed disks. Now we worry about viruses invading our systems from the internet as well. For instance, I just received a letter. If you receive an email with the subject line, "Good Times," do not read the message. Delete it immediately. Some miscreant is sending email under the title "Good Times" nationwide. If you get anything like this, don't download the file. It has a virus on it that rewrites your hard drive, obliterating everything. It's pretty serious stuff. Now, I don't know if this virus report is accurate, and neither do you, unfortunately. So what do? We need to be proactive in eliminating our exposure to viruses. We try to eliminate the opportunity for the virus to get on our system, and if they do slip through our first line of defense, we need to identify and eliminate them before damage can be done. Now, there's a lot of virus protecting software available, some of it commercial, some shareware. Some of it's even freeware. One leading weapon against viruses comes from Symantec, Norton Antivirus on Windows, and SAM on the Macintosh. Both of these packages are commercial software. You can buy them at your local computer store. SAM is really easy to install. Just a few clicks of the mouse and it's done. Now, one nice feature that I really like is that during the installation process, you can make a special antivirus floppy disk. This disk can be used to boot your computer and eliminate viruses if they manage to disable your hard disk. It's a great piece of insurance. SAM installs another piece of software that, when configured properly, constantly monitors the state of your system, and it will alert you if any suspicious activity takes place. If a virus is attempting to infect your system, you'll get an audible alert and a dialog box will appear warning you of the attempt. You can then deal with the threat. Now, when we open the software, we can configure it for our own tastes and manually scan for viruses. There's a couple of things I'd like to point out in the software. Checking the condition of your disk is easy as clicking on this scan button here. Now, if any suspicious viruses or files are present, SAM will give you a report after the scan. You can then deal with them at your leisure. Now, you can modify the eagerness of SAM and set other limits on the virus scanning process under the options menu. The general controls are how SAM deals with the startup process, how it scans your disk at the beginning, and whether or not you want to not invoke or invoke it as the system boots up. The floppy scan is how it deals with disks that are inserted in your floppy drive, whether or not they want every single disk that's put in scanned, or only when it's prompted to scan them, or if you want to bypass the scan for certain disks that you know are clean, how you handle those sorts of things. The prevention area allows you to decide whether you're monitoring for known viruses or just all suspicious files. You can even go in and get into tremendous detail about how SAM and what SAM is looking for when it identifies a virus, but that's really for the expert, not for the novice. One other area which I quite like is the ability of SAM to actually test files that are still in a compressed form. It can actually go in before you decompress a file and install it on your system and check within that file and see if there's any viruses present there. Now, a lot of people don't like to scan every single floppy disk that they put in their drive. That's because they feel it takes too much time and is too much hassle. Now, if you don't like to scan your disk, every disk that you place in your system, you can set up a schedule. Under the Tools menu, they have an item called Scheduler. This is really useful, and it's also useful if you're logging onto the internet and constantly exposing your system to files that you're downloading. Here you can set up a schedule to go, once a week or once a month or once a day for Sam to automatically scan your disk at that point. So the scheduler is quite a useful tool. One constant in the virus game is the fact that there seems to be an endless supply of bozos who waste their valuable talents on mischief and destruction. As a result, we always have new viruses to threaten our system. Now, we can continually update our defenses through the use of a direct dial-up connection to Symantec. Under the Tools menu, we can update virus definitions here, and this will allow us to dial directly out of our modem, choosing the correct modem type and all those sorts of things, to the Symantec BBS, which will then give us updates on any sorts of virus software updates that they have available to them. We can also check through a connection to the internet. If we check Symantec's homepage, we see updated software patches that we can download to offer extra protection to our systems. And that's basically it. It doesn't really matter if you choose a commercial, shareware, or free version of antivirus software. The key point is to be vigilant and make sure that you use the protection that's available to you. Viruses shouldn't really be of any concern if you're aware of their existence and take the necessary precautionary steps.
Nice hot coffee, Steve?
No, but I will have the iced tea.
No, that's for table 5. But here, have a coffee. I'll even pay for it myself.
It's so warm.
Yeah, I know, that's the point.
Oh well.
We'd love to hear from you on Dotto's Data Cafe. If you want to drop us a line or offer a suggestion on a topic, you can fax us at 604-431-3383, email us at dotto@istar.ca, or even drop by our website at www.dotto.istar.ca. We look forward to hearing from you.
Well, that's our show for today. I'd like to thank you for watching. Now remember, if you have a comment or question, you can reach us by email at dotto@istar.ca, fax at 604-431-3383, or on the webpage at www.dotto.istar.ca. Our tagline for today, Vini Vidi Visa. I came, I saw, I charged it. You'll definitely want to catch our next show now that you've got Netscape up and running, because I'm going to show you how to download and configure all the helper applications. And speaking of helpers, I'll have one of those if you don't mind.
Oh, no you won't.
What about our bet?
What about it?
Well, I won, fair and square, jacket on.
Really?
Yeah.
Then how do you explain that?
Oh, how did you know? Oh, give it to me. No, give me the, oh.
Way you go.
That's not fair. You spied on me.
There you go.
Who to?
Over to table 5, please.
You spied on me.
Make sure you don't get any of that on your jacket.
Spied on me. I can't believe she spied on me.
Yes!
Would you like some copies? There, good. These are $8 each. We're just increasing it because we've got to get some good help.